Have you ever felt like your home needed special protection? Have you noticed how some houses seem to carry a different kind of peace, as if they're wrapped in invisible armor? Dear friends, August 11th is no ordinary day. It's the feast of Saint Clare of Assisi, a woman whose life was so pure, so devoted, that even today her protection reaches into our homes. And here's something that might surprise you. Padre Pio himself had a deep reverence for St. Clare and often recommended a simple but powerful practice for this sacred day. If you believe in St. Clare's protection over your home, write in the comments, "St. Clare, protect my home." Your faith matters, and this simple act connects you to centuries of believers who have experienced her miraculous intercession. Now, I'm going to share something with you that Padre Pio recommended to families seeking protection, something so simple you might be tempted to dismiss it, but so powerful that those who practice it report extraordinary peace in their households. Today, you'll discover exactly what to place on your door on St. Clare's Day, and why this humble saint became one of the most trusted protectors of Christian homes. This isn't just another tradition. It's a spiritual practice that has shielded families from harm, brought peace to troubled households, and opened doors to blessings that many thought were impossible. St. Clare understood something about spiritual warfare that we desperately need to remember today. Your home isn't just where you live, it's your sanctuary, your refuge, and it deserves the protection that only heaven can provide. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal has the power to transform not just your August 11th anis, but your entire relationship with the sacred space you call home. St. Clare of Assisi wasn't born to be a revolutionary, but that's exactly what she became. Born into nobility in 1194, she could have lived a life of comfort and luxury. Instead, at 18, she heard St. Francis preach and knew immediately that her life belonged to God. She literally ran away from home on Palm Sunday, cutting off her beautiful hair as a symbol of her complete surrender. But here's what makes St. Clare extraordinary. She didn't just embrace poverty for herself, she fought for it. When church authorities tried to give her community property and wealth, she refused. She wanted nothing that could distract from pure devotion. This radical trust in God's provision made her a beacon of spiritual protection. When you have nothing to lose, you become fearless in defending what matters. Padre Pio understood this connection intimately. He often said that St. Clare's purity of heart made her prayers particularly powerful for protecting families and homes. She had stripped away everything that could compromise her spiritual authority, making her intercession incredibly effective against evil influences. So what exactly did Padre Pio recommend for St. Clare's Day? He suggested placing a small image or medal of St. Clare on your front door, blessed if possible, while saying a simple prayer asking for her protection over your household. But this isn't about superstition. It's about faith in action. The physical act becomes a declaration that this home belongs under heaven's protection. Think about it this way. When you put a security system sign in your yard, you're announcing that your property is protected. When you place St. Clare's image on your door, you're making a much more powerful statement, that this home is under divine protection. And unlike human security systems, this protection never fails, never has technical difficulties, and never expires. St. Clare became the patron saint of television and electronic communications in 1958, but long before that, she was known for her ability to see spiritual realities. One of her most famous miracles happened when Saracen soldiers were attacking her convent. She was too sick to stand, but she had herself carried to the wall facing the attackers. Holding up the Blessed Sacrament, she prayed, and the soldiers fled in terror. She literally stood between danger and those she loved. This is the same protective power she brings to your home today. When you invoke her intercession, you're asking someone who has actually faced down supernatural and natural threats to stand guard over your family. She knows how to fight battles in the spiritual realm that we can't even see. But there's something else Padre Pio emphasized about St. Clare, her ability to bring clarity to confused situations. Her very name means clear or bright. Families who regularly seek her intercession often report that arguments decrease, misunderstandings clear up faster, and there's simply more peace in their daily interactions. It's as if her presence brings the light of truth into dark corners of family life. The tradition isn't complicated. On August 11th, or really any time you feel your home needs extra protection, take a small image of St. Clare. It could be a holy card, a medal, or even a simple printout of her picture. Hold it in your hands and pray something like this: St. Clare, you who gave up everything to follow Christ, protect this home and all who enter here. Guard us from evil, bring us peace, and help us to live with the same purity of heart that made you so powerful in prayer. Then place it on or near your front door. Some families tape it inside the doorframe, others attach it to a wreath or decoration. The location matters less than the faith behind the action. You're essentially putting your home under her mantle of protection. What makes this practice so effective is that it combines several spiritual principles. First, you're acknowledging that your home needs divine protection. This humility opens the door to grace. Second, you're actively participating in your family's spiritual defense rather than just hoping for the best. Third, you're connecting with a saint who specialized in protection and had a direct relationship with God's power. Padre Pio often reminded people that saints aren't distant figures. There are spiritual family members who want to help us. St. Clare, in particular, seems to have a special love for families trying to create holy homes in a chaotic world. Maybe it's because she understood what it meant to leave everything familiar and trust completely in God's provision. Here's what's beautiful about this tradition. It doesn't require expensive materials or complicated rituals. St. Clare, who chose poverty, responds to simple faith more than elaborate displays. A dollar store holy card, placed with genuine devotion, carries the same spiritual power as an expensive statue, because she looks at the heart, not the price tag. As we prepare to dive deeper into how this protection actually works in daily life, remember that St. Clare's greatest miracle wasn't stopping an army. It was living every single day in complete trust that God would provide and protect. That's the kind of faith she wants to share with your family. Speaking of protection and daily spiritual practices, many families have discovered that combining St. Clare's intercession with the powerful prayer of the Rosary creates an incredible shield around their homes. The Rosary was Padre Pio's greatest weapon against evil, and he often encouraged families to make it a central part of their daily protection routine. That's why we've created something special for families like yours who want to deepen their spiritual defenses. Our ebook, The Power of the Rosary with Padre Pio, Miracles, Protection and Divine Graces, will help you learn to pray the Rosary with greater devotion and depth, discover the miracles and testimonies of those who have experienced its power, understand Padre Pio's most impactful teachings about prayer, and receive a 30-day prayer guide with daily intentions to strengthen your faith, plus access to special prayers for protection, healing, and liberation. The Rosary was Padre Pio's greatest weapon, and today it can be yours too. Don't miss this opportunity to strengthen your spiritual life with material that has already helped thousands of people. To download it, just click the link pinned in the comments. Now let's talk about the prayer that makes this protection truly come alive. St. Clare didn't just live in silence. She was a woman of powerful, specific prayer. When you place her image on your door, it shouldn't be a silent gesture. Your words matter, and St. Clare responds to heartfelt requests for protection. Here's a prayer that incorporates the wisdom Padre Pio shared about approaching St. Clare. Blessed St. Clare, you who chose the narrow path and found it led to incredible spiritual power. I place my home under your protection. Just as you stood fearlessly before enemies with only your faith as a weapon, stand now between my family and any force that would harm us. Bring your clarity to our conversations, your peace to our disagreements, and your purity to our daily choices. Guard our doors, our windows, and our hearts. Let no evil enter here, and let only good come from this place. Through Christ our Lord, amen. But here's something crucial that many people miss. The preparation matters as much as the prayer. St. Clare lived her entire life preparing for moments when her intercession would be needed. She fasted. She prayed constantly. She kept her heart pure through daily discipline. She understood that spiritual power comes from spiritual preparation. Before you place anything on your door, spend some time preparing your own heart. This isn't about perfection. St. Clare knows we're human and we struggle, but it is about intention. Ask yourself honestly, am I inviting St. Clare's protection while simultaneously allowing things into my home that work against God's will? Are there shows, conversations, habits, or attitudes that contradict the very protection I'm seeking? One family from the Midwest shared how this simple practice changed everything for them. They had been struggling with constant arguing, financial stress, and their teenage son was making dangerous choices. The mother decided to follow this tradition after reading about Padre Pio's devotion to St. Clare. She placed a small medal on their front door and prayed the prayer every morning for a week. Within 2 weeks, their son came home and admitted he had been hanging out with the wrong crowd. He said he kept thinking about how disappointed his family would be, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to change his path. The arguments between the parents decreased dramatically, and unexpected financial help arrived through a promotion the father had given up hoping for. Now you might think this is coincidence, but here's what that family understood. St. Clare's protection isn't magic, it's spiritual authority in action. When you genuinely invite her intercession, she begins working on hearts, circumstances, and spiritual atmospheres in ways we often can't see until the results appear. The object you place on your door becomes a physical reminder of an invisible reality. Every time you see it, you remember that your home is under heaven's protection. Every time guests notice it, it creates an opportunity to share your faith. Every time you leave and return home, you're reminded that this isn't just your house. It's a place where God dwells through your invitation. Some families create beautiful displays. A small wooden plaque with St. Clare's image, perhaps surrounded by olive branches or other symbols of peace. Others keep it simple with just a holy card tucked discreetly into the doorframe. St. Clare doesn't care about aesthetics. She cares about authenticity. Here's something fascinating about St. Clare's miracles. Many of them involved vision and clarity. She could see spiritual realities that others missed. When she gazed at the Blessed Sacrament, she sometimes saw visions of Christ's life. When enemies approached, she could perceive their true intentions. This gift of spiritual sight is part of what she offers to families who seek her protection. Families who regularly invoke St. Clare often report that they begin noticing things they previously missed. A parent suddenly realizes their child is struggling with something specific. A spouse recognizes patterns in their relationship that need attention. A family member gets a clear sense that they should avoid a particular situation or person. This isn't paranoia. It's the gift of spiritual discernment that comes from connecting with someone who saw clearly. The timing of August 11th isn't arbitrary either. In the liturgical calendar, this falls during a period when the Church traditionally focuses on spiritual purification and preparation. It's as if the entire spiritual atmosphere supports this kind of protective prayer during St. Clare's feast day. But here's what Padre Pio emphasized repeatedly: the protection doesn't stop on August 12th. Once you've genuinely placed your home under St. Clare's care, that protection continues as long as you continue to live in a way that welcomes it. The physical reminder on your door helps maintain your awareness of this ongoing spiritual reality, Think of it like a spiritual security system that never needs updating, never malfunctions, and never charges monthly fees. But unlike technological security, this protection works on the level of hearts and souls, not just physical threats. St. Clare's intercession can protect your family from influences that could destroy relationships, lead children astray, or rob your home of peace. The key is consistency. Make it a habit to acknowledge St. Clare's protection regularly. When you leave your house, briefly thank her for watching over it. When you return, acknowledge her faithfulness. When family conflicts arise, ask for her clarity. When you're worried about your children's choices, seek her intercession. She becomes not just a one-time helper, but a constant spiritual ally for your family's well-being. The beautiful thing about St. Clare's protection is that it grows stronger the more you acknowledge it. This isn't a once-a-year ritual that you perform and forget. It's the beginning of a year-round relationship with one of heaven's most powerful protectors of families. Many families discover that after experiencing St. Clare's intercession on August 11th, they naturally want to maintain that connection throughout the year. Some families choose the 11th of every month as a special day to renew their request for her protection. Others incorporate a brief prayer to St. Clare into their daily routine, perhaps when they lock the door at night or when they're leaving for work in the morning. Here's what's remarkable about developing this ongoing relationship. St. Clare seems to specialize in the everyday battles that can make or break a family's peace. She's not just for dramatic emergencies. She's for the Tuesday evening when everyone's tired and irritable and words start getting sharp. She's for the moment when your teenager is deciding whether to go along with friends who might lead them into trouble. She's for those financial worries that keep you awake at 3 a.m., wondering how you'll manage next month's bills. Padre Pio understood this intimate daily aspect of St. Clare's care because he himself relied on the saints for ordinary struggles, not just extraordinary ones. He would often tell families that the saints are like older siblings who have gone ahead to show us the way home. St. Clare, having lived through her own family conflicts when she chose religious life against her parents' wishes, knows exactly what it feels like when household harmony is threatened. One of the most powerful aspects of St. Clare's intercession is how she helps families communicate with greater clarity and less defensiveness. Remember, her name means clear or bright, and this clarity extends to family relationships. Families who regularly seek her intercession often find that misunderstandings resolve more quickly, that people are more willing to apologize when they've been wrong, and that conversations happen with less hidden agenda and more genuine care. This makes perfect sense when you consider St. Clare's relationship with St. Francis. Their friendship was built on absolute honesty, mutual respect, and shared commitment to God's will above personal comfort. She learned how to have relationships that were both deeply caring and completely truthful. These are exactly the skills that struggling families need most. The connection between Padre Pio and St. Clare runs deeper than many people realize. Both of them understood that true spiritual power comes from complete surrender to God's will, even when that surrender is costly. Padre Pio bore the physical wounds of Christ and endured decades of misunderstanding from church authorities. St. Clare gave up wealth, family approval, and social status to follow her calling. Neither of them chose the easy path, but both of them gained incredible spiritual authority precisely because of their sacrifices. This shared understanding makes their combined intercession particularly powerful for families facing difficult choices. When parents need wisdom about how much freedom to give a struggling teenager, when spouses are trying to balance career demands with family needs, when adult children are caring for aging parents while raising their own kids, these complex situations require the kind of clarity that comes from people who have actually lived through spiritual battles and emerged victorious. Teaching this devotion to your children creates something beautiful. It gives them a concrete way to think about protecting their future homes. When your daughter grows up knowing that homes can be placed under heavenly protection, she's more likely to make choices about roommates, decorating, and daily habits that support rather than undermine that protection. When your son understands that spiritual authority comes from living with integrity, he's more prepared to be the kind of husband and father who can actually guard his family's well-being. Many families create simple traditions around St. Clare that help children remember her protection. Some families have a small statue of St. Clare in their kitchen and briefly ask for her intercession before family meals. Others teach their children to say a quick prayer to St. Clare when they're worried about something happening at school or with friends. The goal isn't to create complicated religious obligations, but to help children grow up understanding that they're part of a spiritual family that extends beyond just the people living in their house. St. Clare becomes like a spiritual aunt who's always available to help, always trustworthy, and always interested in their well-being. As August 11th approaches each year, these families often spend a few days preparing together. They might read stories about St. Clare's life, talk about areas where their family needs extra protection or clarity, and plan how they want to renew their request for her intercession. Children who grow up with these traditions often continue them in their own homes as adults, creating a legacy of spiritual protection that extends across generations. This is exactly what Padre Pio hoped would happen when he recommended devotion to St. Clare. He wasn't just thinking about solving immediate problems. He was thinking about building spiritual strength that could support families through decades of challenges and changes. The beauty of St. Clare's protection is that it adapts to whatever your family needs. Young families might focus on protection for small children and wisdom for parenting decisions. Families with teenagers might emphasize clarity in communication and protection from harmful influences. Empty nesters might seek St. Clare's intercession for adult children making major life choices and for maintaining strong family bonds across distances. As we reach the end of our time together today, I want you to remember something powerful. Your home is more than just where you sleep and eat. It's the foundation where your family's faith either grows stronger or gradually weakens. It's where your children learn what it means to trust God, and where you model what it looks like to live under heaven's protection. St. Clare understood that our physical spaces matter in our spiritual journey. She transformed a simple convent into a place where God's presence was so real that enemies fled in terror. You have that same opportunity with your home. When you place her image on your door and invite her protection, you're not just performing a religious ritual. You're making a statement about who has authority over your family's well-being. Padre Pio lived his entire life knowing that we're never alone in our struggles. The saints are real, their prayers are powerful, and their desire to help us is genuine. St. Clare is waiting to be invited into your family's daily life, ready to bring the same clarity and protection that made her such a formidable force against evil in her own time. If these truths have touched your heart today, write "Thank you, St. Clare" in the comments. Your gratitude helps this message reach families who desperately need to know that their homes can be sanctuaries of peace in a chaotic world. Before you go, I want to share something from my heart. This channel exists because we believe that every family deserves to know about the incredible spiritual resources available to them. Messages like today's about St. Clare's protection have the power to transform homes and strengthen faith, but they can only reach people if we work together as a community. Your support means everything to this mission. When you hit that like button, you're telling others that this message matters. When you share this video, you're potentially placing St. Clare's protection over families who have never heard her name. When you subscribe and become a member of our channel, you're joining a spiritual family committed to spreading the wisdom of saints like Padre Pio and St. Clare. We're not just creating content, We're building a community of faithful families who support each other in living out these beautiful traditions. Your participation makes you part of something much bigger than entertainment. You're helping preserve and share spiritual treasures that can change lives for generations. Thank you for being part of this mission. Together, we're bringing heaven's protection to homes everywhere. There's something else about St. Clare's protection that Padre Pio often emphasized, and it's crucial for understanding why this practice is so effective. St. Clare didn't just pray for protection. She lived in a way that made her prayers incredibly powerful. Her entire life was a preparation for the moments when her intercession would be needed most. This teaches us something vital about how spiritual protection actually works. It's not enough to simply ask for help and then continue living in ways that contradict what we're praying for. When you invite St. Clare's protection over your home, you're also accepting an invitation to live with greater purity of intention, just as she did. What does this look like in practical terms? It means being more intentional about what you allow into your home through television, internet, music, and conversations. St. Clare gave up worldly entertainment not because it was evil, but because she wanted nothing to compete with her focus on God. You don't have to become a monk or nun, but you can ask yourself, does this show, this music, this conversation support the kind of peaceful, holy atmosphere I'm asking St. Clare to protect? It also means being more conscious of how you treat family members. St. Clare was known for her extraordinary kindness and patience, even when dealing with difficult people. If you're asking for her intercession to bring peace to your home, she might also be working on your own heart to help you become a person who contributes to that peace rather than disrupting it. Many families discover that St. Clare's protection becomes a catalyst for positive changes they had been putting off. Maybe it's finally having that honest conversation with a family member. Maybe it's setting healthier boundaries with relatives who bring drama. Maybe it's being more generous with forgiveness when someone in the household makes mistakes. Here's something beautiful that happens. When you begin living in alignment with the protection you're seeking, that protection becomes more tangible and more effective. It's like the difference between asking a friend for help while continuing to ignore their advice versus asking for help and then actually implementing their suggestions. St. Clare responds more powerfully to families who are genuinely trying to create homes worthy of heaven's protection. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. St. Clare herself faced moments of doubt, family opposition, and physical suffering. She understands human weakness. But she also knows the difference between people who are genuinely trying to grow in holiness and people who want spiritual benefits without spiritual effort. Padre Pio often reminded people that the saints are not distant figures who occasionally help us. They're active partners in our spiritual journey. When you develop a real relationship with St. Clare, you start noticing her guidance in small daily decisions. You might feel prompted to check on a neighbor, to have a difficult conversation with kindness instead of anger, or to choose forgiveness when resentment would be easier. One of the most powerful aspects of St. Clare's intercession is how she helps families recognize and resist spiritual attacks before they escalate. Every family faces periods when everything seems to go wrong at once. Financial problems, health issues, relationship conflicts, and work stress all hitting simultaneously. These aren't always just coincidences. Sometimes they're coordinated spiritual attacks designed to overwhelm and discourage faithful families. St. Clare, who literally faced down armed enemies through prayer, knows how to recognize and counter these attacks. Families under her protection often report that they develop better spiritual discernment. They start noticing patterns, how certain influences consistently bring division, how specific situations repeatedly trigger family conflicts, how particular relationships always seem to drain their peace. With this awareness comes the ability to respond spiritually rather than just emotionally. Instead of getting caught up in the drama, they step back and ask St. Clare for wisdom and protection. They pray before having difficult conversations. They seek her intercession before making major decisions. They ask for her clarity when situations seem confusing or overwhelming. This is the mature spiritual life that Padre Pio wanted for every Catholic family, not just going through religious motions, but developing real spiritual skills that help navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom. St. Clare's protection becomes the foundation for this growth, providing the peace and clarity necessary for spiritual maturity to develop. When August 11th arrives, you'll be ready not just to perform a ritual, but to deepen a relationship that can transform your family's entire spiritual journey.